More work? What? All right. Yes, me lord. Off I go then. Righto. All right. Righto.
Yes, my liege. On my way.
Job's done. Job's done. Job's done. Job's done.
Say the word. Orders? Right. Of course. Right. Aye, my lord. On my way.
More work? Off I go then. Yes, me lord.
Research complete.
Off I go then.
Upgrade complete. Ready for action. Upgrade complete.
Job's done. What? Job's done. Job's done. All right.
Ready for action. Yes, my liege. Of course. Of course. Aye, my lord. Right. On my way. Ready for action. What do you need? Right. Of course.
Upgrade
Aye, my
complete.
lord. On my way. Orders? On my way. Right. Aye, my lord. Of course. Right. On my way. Of course. Aye, my lord. On my way. Of course. Aye, my lord. Right. Let me at 'em. To arms! On my way. Right. Aye, my lord. Of course. Right. Attack!
Upgrade complete. Upgrade complete.
To arms! Attack! On my way. Aye, my lord. Of course. Aye, my lord. Say the word.
More gold is required.
Orders? What do you need? Right. Yes, my liege. Say the word. Ready for action.
Upgrade complete.
Ready for action.
Research complete.
Ready for action. Yes, my liege. Say the word. On my way. What do you need?
Research complete.
Orders. Ready for action. Say the word. What do you
Upgrade
need?
complete.
Of course. Of course. Ready for action. Aye, my lord. On my way. Right. Aye, my lord. Right. Of course. On my way. Of course. On my way. Ready for action. Right. Aye, my lord. Aye, my lord. Of course. Ready for action. Orders. Yes, my liege. On my way. Say the word. Ready for action. Right. Right. Aye, my lord. On my way. Of course. Right. Aye, my lord. On my way. Of course. Yes, my liege. On my way. Aye, my lord. Right. Of course. Aye, my lord. Of course. On my way.
Research
Right.
complete.
Orders? What do you need? On my way. Right. Of course. Aye, my lord. On my way.
Research
Aye,
complete.
my lord. Of course. Let me at 'em. Attack! To arms! Locked and loaded! Right. Aye, my lord. Right. Of course. On my way. Let me at 'em. Let me at 'em. Right. To arms! Attack! To arms! Attack! On my way. Aye, my lord. Let me at 'em. On my
Research
way.
complete.
Of course. Aye, my lord. Attack! Wah! Say the word. I'm your suitor. You need? Yes, my liege. On my way. Whoa! I'm your lord. Orders. On my way. Of course. Right. Let me at 'em. Let me at 'em. Attack! Aye, my lord. On my way. Of course. To arms! Aye, my lord. Let me at 'em. On my way. Attack! What do you need? Right. Aye, my lord. For Lordaeron! Of course. To arms! On my way. Attack! Let me out. To arms! Let me out! Right. Attack! Right. To arms! On my way! Of course. Attack! To arms! On my way. Aye, my lord. Right. Of course. Let me out. On my way. Aye, my lord. Of course. Attack! Right, right. Of course. Aye, my lord. To arms! Let me out. On my way. Whoa! Right. Aye, my lord. Of course. On my way. Aye, my lord. Of course. On my way. Right. Aye, my lord. Of course. Let me out. Attack! Whoa! Let me out! Attack! Let me out! On my way! Say the word! Right, of course! Attack! On my way! Aye, my lord. Of course. Let me out. On my way. Aye, my lord. Right. To arms! Attack! On my way! Let me out! Dwarf! For Lord! Attack! Let me out! Attack! Let me out! On my way!